And we're back. You're listening to One Rep at a Time Radio. What's going on, everybody? This is Marv. I'm your host. You listen to One Rep at a Time Radio on the Recovery Channel mobile app. So glad to be back on the airwaves. I know we took some time off, and just grateful to be back. So we're doing another listener Q&A episode backed by popular demand. I've actually gotten a couple requests for this. So we're just going to dive right into things. Now, One Rep at a Time Radio is brought to you by OneRepAtATime.net, fitness to recovery mindset. So the whole idea of that site and that company, which is my company, is to blend fitness with the recovery process. Now, you don't have to be in recovery to gain benefit from the information or services we offer, but it is through a recovery lens is that we view fitness and health, nutrition, all the above. So, very, very grateful to be given this opportunity and get back on the airways. So, let me just state, though, that this is for educational, entertainment purposes only. This is not direct medical advice. User assumes all liability. So now all the legal fun stuff is out. Let's just dive straight into the questions. We got a lot to cover in a short period of time. You might hear my mouse clicking from time to time as I'm going between the recording software and the Word document where I have everybody's questions, which thank you for everybody who asked. Hopefully I could cover them all. The first one I'm going to cover is kind of funny. It's a topic that I actually did a video on our Facebook page a day or two ago, and it's kind of been kind of popular in the online sober sphere, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I'll start with a recovery question because the rest of them are all exercise, fitness, and nutrition questions. So let's get the one recovery question I got out of the way first. And remember, this is my own personal opinion. So the topics were fitness, health, nutrition, supplements, exercise, and my own personal recovery experience. So the question was, what is the difference between being abstinent from using your drug of choice and being in recovery? So this is my own personal opinion. So let's remember, there are many paths to the same top of the hill. So what works for me in my recovery might not work for you in your recovery, and vice versa. The same with fitness, the same with pretty much everything. We're all our own unique individuals, so we're all going to have our own personal definitions of what we want our fitness and our recovery to be. But for me personally, when I'm abstinent and not in recovery yet, if I'm just merely not using drugs, I'm not using alcohol, I'm not practicing body dysmorphia, I'm not manipulating people for sex, I'm not stealing from people, I'm not acting out, on all my old behaviors, because remember, drugs and alcohol are but a symptom of something far deeper. My addiction covered more than just drugs and alcohol. If I'm merely not doing those things, I am just abstinent. So I'm that static addict or that dry drunk, which I have been before, and every single time I end up going back to my drinking and drugging in the majority of those behaviors. Not every single one of those behaviors, but the majority of them. Now, when I came into recovery was when I started to work on myself and find out, why did I need to live life loaded? Why did I need to manipulate people? Why did I need to do those other things of my active addiction and acting out? That's when I came into recovery. It was because I was finding out why. Drugs and alcohol were not my number one problem. They were my number one solution. So when I started to learn new solutions, that's when I came into recovery. So that's my own personal distinction. I could be abstinent and not practicing active addiction, but once I found out why I needed to be in active addiction, that's when I entered recovery. So that's just my own personal opinion. I hope that makes sense. The video I did earlier this week was a little bit more in depth, but that's the gist of it. Okay, so the next question is eating smartly on a budget. How to get enough protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals, etc. without sacrificing carb payments. Very good question. So, here is a tough reality. In order to do so, you're going to have to prepare the majority of your meals by hand. Now, there's a lot of people freak out about that, but let's remember, everything we do in life is a skill. Cooking is a learned skill. Knowing how to budget and get the proper food items is a learned skill. Nobody's good at everything from day one, so yes, it is going to take some time, but you can get the hang of it. Now, my best advice to eating smartly on a budget And I love how he used the word eating smartly, because that's what we stand for here at One Rep at a Time. Not this clean eating or junk eating, that connotation of good versus bad, but we like the term smart and needs to be smarter. So here's my best tips for you. First of all, you're going to buy in bulk. And like I said, you're going to be pouring the majority of your meals. Now, protein is always going to be the most expensive macronutrient. So macronutrients are proteins, fats, and carbs. Protein is always the most expensive because what is protein? It's primarily meat. Now, yes, you have your cheeses and your eggs, and that stuff's way more expensive than a 5-pound bag of potatoes or a 2-pound bag of broccoli. So shop in bulk. The majority of your shopping is going to be not in those center aisles going up and down, but on the peripheral of any grocery store. You want to stick to the outside. You want to stay away from the aisles for the most part. Spend 80% of your shopping on the outside of the store. You're going to be set up for success. So yes, that means, for instance, I have a Costco membership I'm very blessed to have, but also did Vons for many, many years. And I stuck to the outside and I'd get things in bulk. So, a 5-pound bag of potatoes, I keep wanting to say tomatoes, sorry, is $3.99 at Vons. I could get 2 pounds of broccoli for $5. I could get 32 ounces, so 2 pounds of mini sweet peppers for $4. Shop what's in season. So start with your complex carbohydrates, which is I am a big believer in complex carbohydrates being oatmeal, potatoes, and then rice or quinoa, whatever you prefer. That's my complex carbohydrates. Next will come your veggies, so do whatever's in season. Now, with the advent of all these chemicals and all these great advancements, quote unquote, in the agricultural world, almost everything's in season year round. But when a vegetable is on sale, absolutely go for that. Okay, so then come your veggies next. I'm a big believer in berries for fruit. Now, I prefer frozen berries. That's just my own cup of tea. That is a delicious treat, especially if you're not eating a bunch of sugar. They'll taste super sweet, so don't neglect fruit, but I'm a big believer of veggies. And here's the deal. If you are focusing on getting vegetables in every meal, you're eating colorful vegetables throughout the day or throughout the week. You don't have to eat every color of the rainbow in a given day, but hopefully by the end of a 7-day period, you've eaten a red veggie, or fruit, sure, we could say fruit too, a yellow or orange vegetable, a dark green vegetable, maybe some mushrooms, some fungi, which are very expensive. Now, you could get a big old thing of mushrooms for $5 at Vons as well and make that last. And if you are preparing the majority of your meals, it's actually amazing how much food you could get by preparing your own meals and cooking for yourself and bringing your meals somewhere. Now, again, protein is going to be the biggest hurdle because that's the most expensive, so buy in bulk. So when you can, do a family pack style of meats. That's what most grocery stores do, or at least when I worked at Vons, that's what we called it. Free some, keep some for that. Buy everything in bulk. You get it at a cheaper price, and you just ration out what you're going to make. That is the best. Now, I know that sounds super bland and boring, so guess what? I'm realistic. I'm not saying you have to prepare 100% of what you eat. I would recommend giving yourself an eat-out budget for the week. If you want to go fellowship with people after getting together for whatever recovery program you do, absolutely go for it. But the majority of the meals are going to have to be prepared by yourself. And what's crazy is once you have kind of rid yourself of the prepackaged nonsense, your body doesn't really crave it that much. Now, it can be rough getting off of things like sugar, artificial sweeteners, or just packaged food, TV dinners, all that stuff. It is a little rough. I'm not making it not be like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. There's a reason why they are engineering these foods to have what's known as a bliss point, where it's literally designed to be addictive. And they're finding that there are literally foods that are like crack foods that light up our brain the same way that cocaine does. So they are stacking the odds against us. But if the majority of your meals are single ingredient foods, meaning it's ground beef or ground turkey or chicken, and then some potatoes and then some broccoli or whatever. I keep using potatoes as an example, but whatever you like. The majority of your meals are that versus prepackaged stuff. You're going to be in good shape. And if you eat a variety of vegetables and fruit, complex carbohydrates, protein, you are going to get your fiber satisfied, and you're most likely going to get your micronutrient satisfied. I will say that I highly encourage, for educational purposes only, that you look into supplementing with magnesium is very common deficiency, a very, very common deficiency. So that's very common, and vitamin D, especially if you do not get a lot of natural sunlight. So those are two things that are very common to be deficient in. So that might be some micronutrients that you're going to have to look into, or vitamins that you may have to supplement with. But if you eat a balanced variety of everything, you should be in a pretty good shape. As far as how much protein do you need, if you are resistance training and you, let's say you're about 15% body fat for men and 25% and below for women, and you're resistance training routinely, I would say aim for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. If you're above those body fat percentages and you're not like a power lifter, for instance, or you're not really focused on just pushing weight, you can get away with a little less protein because you're not going to have as much muscle. But typically I would say aim for 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, and that 1.2 is a little on the high side, I'd admit, but if you're somebody who's an advanced trainee, meaning you've been lifting weights for a long period of time, sure, you could go up to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, but other than that, you're just kind of wasting money. You know, there's a joke that Americans have the most expensive urine in the world, and I know this is an international platform, but there's that joke because we piss away a lot of the vitamins, the bogus vitamins and supplements we're taking, and we piss out a lot of protein, especially in the fitness world, where you'll hear people recommend taking 2 to 3 grams of protein per pound of body weight, which is absolutely insane. So you actually don't need as much protein as you might think that's been shoved down your throat if you're somebody who's been into fitness for a long period of time. So I hope that helps with that question. Stick to the outside of the stores, prepare the majority of your meals, have a certain budget set aside for when you eat out, and you'll be good to go. Next question, why does my shoulder hurt so bad from the incline bench press? Okay, so this is actually fairly common. Now this is just me guessing, so in a perfect world I would be able to ask the follow-up question, but my guess is it's an impingement in the subacromial space, which is basically where the upper arm bone, the humerus, is going into the shoulder joint, or the socket right there, and it's pretty common. And what happens is the incline press compounds this because the weight is literally forcing or decreasing the area of space in the subacromial space. So there's already an impingement there. Now you're using a barbell, and how the weight, that exercise is set up, the positioning of your shoulders, position of your shoulder blades, it's actually making that already impinged area less space in there, and that's why you have a lot of pain. That would be my guess. It's actually fairly common. Now, what can you do about that? If this was me, and this is very common, is people will neglect the muscles they can't see. So rotator cuff is very common, as well as the middle and lower traps. So for rotator cuff, you want to be doing external rotations rather religiously, or I do personally. Lightweight, never heavyweight, higher repetition. So 10 to 20 reps. I never go over 10 pounds. Never. Typically, I use 5 pounds. And so external rotations for the rotator cuff. Then to build up your middle and lower traps, you want to do something known as a trap raise with either bands or a cable machine. And that's where you stand in front of you. Arms are shoulder width. I recommend using a rope, but you could also use a straight bar. And so arms are straight ahead of you, right? Elbows extended, shoulder height. And what you're going to do is you're going to raise either the band or the weight, the cable machine if you're using, and you're going to raise your arm straight up until your humerus, your upper arm is right by your ears, and you're going to squeeze, and you're going to feel your middle upper back really fire. That's a great exercise for your middle and lower traps. And then the face pull, just look up face pull. That's really hard to explain visually. And then also you can do what's known as a chest supported shrug. So if you know what a T-bar station is, you sit in there and you literally just shrug your shoulder blades back. That's something you could do as well. And a lot of people don't realize that your middle and lower traps are super important for any pressing exercise, because whenever you're doing a chest press of any variation, incline, decline, flat, I don't care, machine, your shoulder blades need to be packed, meaning your shoulder blades are in a position that is back and down. So you put your shoulder blades in your back pocket. In my opinion, outside of learning the correct form for squats and deadlifts, this is the hardest thing in fitness to learn how to do, to keep your shoulder blades pinned and back. It's very unnatural. And if your middle to lower traps are weak, odds are your shoulder blades are rounding forward, which will further aggravate a shoulder impingement position, as well as put the emphasis on the weight on your front shoulder muscle, your front deltoids, and take the area of emphasis away from your chest. So strengthen your middle and lower traps, work on your rotator cuff. Now, what else can you do? You could attempt to only bring your arms down to 90 degrees on the incline bench press and not go any further. That's another option. You could try using a narrower grip than usual, so about 3 to 6 inches inside of shoulder width. Now, that will place a little more emphasis on the triceps and take a little bit of emphasis on the chest. You could try switching to dumbbells, and I honestly prefer dumbbells over a barbell press any day of the week. One, they're easier on our shoulders typically because it's not a fixed path, and two, you could bring your arms across because our chest's main job is to bring our arms across our body, across midline, as well as internally rotating at the shoulder, and then depending on if you're doing like a low to high cable crossover, raising the shoulder as well. But our main job of our pec is to bring our arm across our body. So if you're standing up, put your arm straight out shoulder height, bring it across, have your hand on your chest, you will feel your chest start to contract. So why I like dumbbells is because you can bring your hands closer together at the top. If you just love barbells, here's a tip for you. Whenever you are pressing up that barbell out of the hole, I want you to picture bringing your hands together. Now, your hands will not move on the barbell, but applying that inward force, that it's called adduction, you will feel your pecs like activate, fire, turn on, contract, and you'll feel it in your chest finally, maybe for the first time ever. So try dumbbells, and if all else fails, ditch incline pressing, because that whole mantra of no pain, no gain is a bunch of BS. I believe we've covered on here before. That mantra came to do with the fact that when you are a bodybuilder using bodybuilding drugs, the blood volume increases, so every exercise burns more, and that's referring to pushing through the intense burning sensation because the pump is so bad, your blood volume is so much that your muscles feel like they're exploding. It's pushing to that. It's not meaning do an exercise when your shoulder is killing you or your joints are hurting. We need to be mature exercisers, not novice exercisers. So if all those tips that I just gave you aren't working, ditch the incline barbell press or the incline dumbbell press and switch to an underhand bench press. Now, underhand bench press is actually pretty amazing. It is the very first article we ever wrote on onerepatatime.net, which, by the way, you're listening to One Rep at a Time radio on the Recovery Channel mobile app. Yes, this is a fitness and recovery internet radio show / podcast. We're doing a listener Q&A. For those of you just tune in, we covered our one recovery question, and now we're getting in pretty nitty-gritty about fitness, health, weight training, nutrition. So just bear with us. We will go back kind of to more regular programming coming forward as far as blending more recovery with fitness. But this is a listener Q&A. The underhand bench press, love it. Sadly, because of my previous injuries, the underhand bench press is one of those qualifies of the no pain, no gain mantra. I cannot follow that because it hurts my wrist, but what you do is you flip your hands over, your elbows are tucked in, and you do a bench press that way. Now that's going to clear a ton of space in your shoulder joint because now your arms are tugging, or kind of by your sides, right? Your elbows are near your sides. That's going to clear a lot of space in that subacromial space that I believe is impinged. And here's the kicker: the University of Toronto, a Canadian study, found that the underhand barbell bench press actually got better, 25% more activation in our upper pecs than the traditional incline barbell press. So not only is it going to give you better results, it's also probably going to reduce the pain. So give that a shot and let me know. Hope that helps you out. That was just my best guess. So the next is a fellow who's asked me about creatine. So he didn't take creatine for a week and a half, didn't notice a difference. He's been using creatine HCl, so creatine hydrochloride, and it's not doing anything. Should I just stop buying in the future? What is the deal? So, glad he asked. I am the first to admit that I fell for every single trick the fitness industry and the supplement industry had. My first 4 to 5, maybe 6 years of working out, I was very naive. I listened to Muscle and Fiction aka muscle comics, aka bodybuilding magazines, like they were my Bible, and I believe that every new supplement was the missing ingredient to give me the body of my dreams, because a shiny bottle of capsules or powder was the missing link. Not that I didn't know how to properly set up a workout program, not that I didn't know how to properly follow a nutrition plan, not how I knew how to properly manage my calories in, the calories out, not that I properly knew how to program rest into my routine, etc., etc., etc. I would take 40 to 50 supplements in a given day thinking that that was the missing link. And that is a bunch of bullshit. But with that said, creatine is actually one of the very few supplements that I take today. I would say 90% of my supplements that I take today are health supplements. So things like curcumin, astaxanthin, Juice Plus, magnesium, EGCG, vitamin D, fish oil, CoQ10, stuff like that. Health supplements, not traditional bodybuilding supplements. Now, creatine, though, is one of the very few traditional bodybuilding supplements that I take and I am a huge fan of. Now, he's using creatine hydrochloride, creatine HCl. Look, man, just save your money. Stick with tried and true basic creatine monohydrate. Every couple years or every year they come out with some new fancy scientific sounding form of creatine that's supposed to be way better than the original, and it's 3 times as expensive, and half the time it's later shown that it doesn't work. Our body doesn't absorb it. There is no increased ability for our body to use it. Stick with basic pure creatine monohydrate. It is dirt cheap. Now, what does creatine do? Creatine will increase our ATP stores in our body, specifically in our muscles. And the beginning of any muscle contraction, the beginning of any activity relies on ATP. And once we burn through that initial ATP, I believe, I'm going from memory from college, 1 to 3 seconds is the ATP system. Then it switches over to stored glycogen or stored carbohydrates. Once you stop the activity, ATP regenerates, and creatine monohydrate can help your body regenerate ATP quicker. So that's how it works. Now, there's this whole myth that creatine will instantly give you 5 to 10 pounds of body weight that you'll blow up, and that you have to drink a gallon of water a day, which is why you see all these bros walking around with gallon jugs of water. Okay, so that myth about gaining 5 to 10 pounds, here's how supplement companies got that to go about. The original creatine supplements were not just creatine by themselves, which I recommend just getting basic creatine monohydrate by itself, no flavoring system, no artificial sweeteners, no carbohydrates, nothing. Just get basic creatine monohydrate by yourself. I'll explain how to dose it in a little bit. But these original creatines had a ton of sugar in them, or carbohydrates. So, and they would tell you to load it, which I personally tell people to load creatine, meaning the first 3 days you're going to take of creatine monohydrate 3 to 4 servings of 5 grams, so 15 to 20 grams of it per day into separate servings, not all at once, or you won't get off the toilet. I'm a believer in loading it, and if you're buying just basic creatine monohydrate with nothing else in it, it's going to be cost effective. So, and then after that, you only need up to 5 grams per day, so 1 scoop of it per day. But when they would tell you to load it, right, you're eating a bunch of extra calories, so anywhere from probably 300 to 800 extra calories a day. You're eating a bunch of sugar and carbohydrates. And guess what? What does the name carbohydrate mean? Carbohydrate, water. For every 1 molecule of carbohydrate your body absorbs, 3 molecules of water go with it. So you're just going to be holding a ton of water and you eat a bunch of extra calories, and that's why you would see a 5 to 10 pound increase overnight. So that's where that myth came about. But creatine is extremely effective for helping with exercise. Just FYI, this blew my mind. Sodium is a far better transporter of creatine in the muscle cells than insulin from carbohydrates or simple sugar, so just keep that in mind. Now, 30% of the population is a creatine non-responder, meaning creatine just does not work for them. They don't understand why. Now, creatine is one of the most widely studied ergogenic, meaning performance-boosting supplements of all time. It is extremely safe. You do not need to take breaks from it. For this individual who asked me that question about a week ago, you do not need to take breaks with it. Now, creatine is extremely important for vegans. It has proven cognitive mental boosts. How I personally use creatine today is I take it almost every day, but how much I take depends on the meat I'm eating. If I'm eating red meat for that day or fish, I will only take 2 to 3 grams. If I'm not eating very many of those meats, I will take up to 5 grams. So I only use it to supplement, so I'm not relying on 5 grams of creatine a day. So stick with creatine monohydrate, save your money and all that fancy bullshit. It works really well for the majority of the people, but there are people it doesn't work for. If you are vegan, I strongly encourage you to take creatine. So, hope that helps with your question. Going back to the next one. Losing weight, what percentage would you say is exercise versus food intake? So, we have a saying here at One Rep at a Time, and this is One Rep at a Time radio on the Recovery Channel mobile app brought to you by onerepatatime.net. The quantity of your food will determine the number on the weight scale. Period. End of story. The quality of your food and the quality of your training, aka exercise, will determine your body composition, meaning how you look, and then also how you feel, what your health is. So, the quantity of your food determines the number on the scale. So, say on a given day, 2,500 calories is your maintenance, meaning it takes 2,500 calories to maintain your current body weight. I don't care if you eat 5,000 calories, you are going to gain weight. So, let me re-say that. If you eat 5,000 calories, I don't care if it's quote-unquote dirty calories or quote-unquote clean calories, you are going to gain weight. We cannot ignore the law of thermodynamics, meaning what is your caloric balance? How many calories are you putting in your body to how many calories are you putting out of your body through exercise, through what's known as NEAT, just the daily activity, all of that, the speed of your metabolism, which is derived by how much muscle you have, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so, but the quality of your food and the quality of your training will determine how you look and how you feel. Meaning if you are eating, if you're somebody, you have two people, they eat the same amount of calories, okay, they have the same amount of caloric balance. You have one individual who's a couch potato, and he's eating 10% protein, 80% carbohydrate, 10% fat. I'm just making up numbers on the fly. I probably should have thought this out better. He's going to have less muscle than another person who's eating the same amount of calories at the same caloric balance, who's eating 40% protein, 30% carbohydrate, 30% fat, and they're resistance training. That second individual is going to have way more muscle. So yes, exercise is important. Now, when you say losing weight, we need to further clarify that. Instead of just saying, I just want to lose weight, let's say I want to lose body fat while maintaining as much muscle as possible. There is a huge difference between just losing weight, losing whatever, muscle, fat, I don't care what it is, just lose weight, versus trying to lose body fat and sparing muscle. Now, why is that so important? Well, when you're losing weight by any means necessary, which typically is extreme diet, caloric restriction, extreme dieting, a ton of cardio, you will slow down your metabolism. It's all about the signal you're sending your body. Are you telling your body to get more efficient and there's potential starvation because you're crash dieting? Your body doesn't know you're trying to look good naked or lose weight. It perceives that there is a famine. It will slow down your metabolism and hold on to everything at all costs. That is what the last thing we want to do. So you want to lose body fat. Unless you're new to lifting weights or you have muscle memory, you're going to have to be what's known in a caloric deficit. So you're eating less calories than you're burning, and you are going to want to be doing some sort of resistance training. Traditional steady state slog fest, 2 hours on a treadmill is the worst way to transform your body. Let me say that again for everybody. 2 hour slog fest on the cardio machine is the worst way to transform your body. I'm going to say it. So we have a term for that for people who've worked in the gym industry, fitness industry, of what a cardio bunny looks like. It's that skinny fat that look the same way every single day, day in, day out, year after year after year, but they spend an hour to 2 hours to 3 hours religiously on the cardio equipment. We want to be doing things that speed up your metabolism, which is resistance training. So for this individual who I know and who I adore, you're going to have to implement resistance training in order to maintain muscle, potentially build muscle, and lose body fat. Because it's all about the signal. Our muscle is very, very metabolically expensive, meaning it takes a lot more calories to maintain muscle than it is to maintain fat, which is why the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism. So we need to be sending a signal to your body that, yes, we need to maintain this muscle and potentially build muscle if you've never worked out with weights before. So Quantity of food will determine the number on the weight scale. The quality of that food and the quality of your training, meaning are you resistance training or not, will determine your body composition and how you feel, like your health. And given, the obvious, majority of people listening to this show are in recovery, so from some sort of active addiction. So we might have residual health issues from our years of active addiction or just genetics or whatever the hell it might be. So that is kind of a broad statement, but you kind of get what I'm saying. So, quality of food means, how much protein you're eating, to how many carbohydrates, how many fats. Also, the quality of that food. How smart is that food? Are you following that first bit on, shopping on a budget? Are you preparing the majority of your meals? Are the majority of your food items coming from single ingredient or whole item foods versus packaged stuff or eating out or eating fast food, so stuff like that. So unfortunately, yes, weight training is the best way to change your body. Period. End of story. There's no way around that. And women particularly say, that whole myth of I don't want to get too bulky. You're not going to get too bulky. You would know before you ever touch the weight that you're a hyper responder to resistance training, and that's because we as men, our muscular and skeletal system is different than you. We have more testosterone, way more testosterone than you, and our bodies just respond differently. So do not worry about getting bulky, resistance training, and yes, caloric balance will determine the number on the weight scale, but if you want to lose body fat, resistance training is a must. Okay, moving on. Pushing weight versus contractions in control. Yes. I love this. Thank you, brother, for asking. So, guess what, everybody? Our muscles do not know the number on the weight plate or the weight stack or however you're getting your resistance training in. It does not know that number. All it knows is the quality of the tension and contraction it's having to generate to overcome that weight. So what does that mean? It means what he's talking about. Getting a good contraction in the muscles that we want to be contracting, controlling the weight is far more important than sloppily pushing super heavy weights. First of all, it's known as ego lifting, or that's what I call it. And it's nowhere near as effective. Your increase of injury is through the roof. And for those of us who know what we're doing, you look silly. Now, I'm not hating on anybody. I looked silly in the beginning. You know, everything is a skill. So yes, there's going to be a time where we might look silly. But controlling the weight, getting a better contraction is far more important than pushing the weight. So guys are more guilty of this than women. For some reason, we walk into the gym, and it must be the Neanderthal in this. We want to lift all the weights. Every single weight in here I'm going to lift. I'm going to show off for strangers. You know, I did that a lot. And you're going to get hurt. You're going to blow out something. You're going to get nagging injuries. And you're going to be in and out of the quote-unquote iron game really quickly. So controlling the weight is extremely important. There's 3 parts of a muscle contraction. We have the positive or concentric portion of the contraction. So I'm going to use a bicep curl. And you can do this just sitting wherever you are. Okay, so pretend you have a dumbbell in your hand and you're doing a bicep curl and you're curling the weight up. Okay, your muscle fibers are shortening and you are raising the weight. That is known as the positive or concentric portion of the contraction. And you are weakest in that part of the contraction. Now, when you're holding your weight up there at the side and you're flexing your muscle and you're squeezing your muscle, your biceps as hard as you can, and you're creating tension in that muscle, but your muscle fibers are neither lengthening or shortening, that is known as the isometric portion of a contraction. That is your middle of the road strength between all 3 portions. And as you lower that dumbbell, okay, your muscle fibers are lengthening, you're lowering the weight, that is known as the negative or eccentric portion of the contraction. And guess what? You are strongest in the eccentric portion of the contraction. And think about it. It makes sense. When you do bicep curls and you hit failure, we don't fail to lower the weight. We fail to raise the weight. We are weakest in the positive portion of the rep. And unfortunately, most people only will just go as fast as they possibly can, completely ignoring the isometric portion of the contraction of really squeezing your muscle as hard as you can and controllably lowering the weight. And guess what? You are, I believe it's 4 times stronger on the negative portion of the rep than the positive portion of the rep, and you cause 4 times more damage on the negative portion of the rep and than the positive portion of the rep. And guess what? The whole goal of lifting weights, or any type of resistance training, if it's body weight, bands, machines, I don't care. Barbells, dumbbells, your kid, whatever, your dog, whatever you're using for resistance training. The whole goal is to break down tissue so your body has to repair itself and you come back bigger, faster, stronger. Controlling that weight and getting a quality contraction is going to give you far better results than just sloppily moving a bunch of weight by any means necessary. Okay, that is the hardest thing to learn. Our egos take a hit. We all want to lift super heavy weights. Knock that bleepity bleep off. Okay, so I guarantee next time you do curls, just do me a favor. Okay, the whole time I want you to be flexing your bicep as hard as you can. Don't just move the weight from point A to point B, or going way too heavy so your elbows are flaring out, or you're doing that ridiculous like semi-half circle movement with your upper body, or leaning backwards at a 45-degree angle to get the weight up. Keep your elbows by your sides, lock the elbows into place, contract, really flex your bicep as hard as you can. Take 1 to 2 seconds to raise the weight. Now at the top position, flex your biceps as hard as you can for 2 seconds, and then controllably lower the weight while still squeezing your biceps, taking 3 seconds. Hell, you can do this right now, wherever you're sitting without a weight in your hand. Just move your hand up from point A to point B, not really squeezing anything. That's how most people work out. Now, make a fist. Squeeze your arm by your biceps as hard as you can. Now, take 1 to 2 seconds, so 1001, 1002 at the top. Now, continue to flex your arm, squeezing your fist as hard as you can in that top position, 1001, 1002. Now, without breaking that contraction, squeezing, take 3 seconds to lower it, 1001, 1002, 1003. Boom. That's how you should do your reps. I guarantee you're going to get better results doing it that way than just moving the weight by any forms necessary. Our muscles are not smart, sentient beings. They don't know the number on the weight plate. They know the quality of the tension and the contraction they're having to generate. That is a big difference between being a novice exerciser, or we'll say novice lifter because we're talking about resistance training, to a mature lifter. Okay, that's why really big guys in the gym, sometimes you look at the weights they're using and it's like, that looks really, really small, light. These guys are curling as hard, they're red face. Let's ignore the obvious elephant in the room, but they are red face, saliva spitting, veins bulging with 25 pound dumbbells curling. And then you have this little smaller individual who's using 50-pound dumbbells with crummy form, moving the weight to point A to point B. And you tell me who's getting a better contraction and a better workout. So thank you for asking that. That is the hardest thing to learn. Also, a thing I'm a big believer on is at least for the first half of the reps on your exercises, pause in the bottom position to each rep. So let's go back to the curl. We come up, we squeeze, we control, we lower it. Now instead of going right back into the positive, I want you to pause in the bottom position for 2 seconds, take all the elastic energy out, take all the momentum out of it, and then initiate. So each rep is separate. Do half of the reps of each set that way, and then you can do the second half of the reps within that given set, nice and fluid. But that's also another way to decrease your risk of injury, actually making the target muscles work, and you're going to get better results. So try that out. I hope that made sense. I really sometimes I just wish I had a video camera. But the funny thing is, I made a video for a YouTube channel that we started. So please, by the way, go to YouTube. Our channel is One Rep at a Time, about all 3 parts of the reps and how to do it correctly, using the bicep curls as an example, as well as having to do negatives, which is an advanced lifting technique properly as well. So check that out. And for those of you who are just tuning in on the Recovery Channel mobile app, no, there's not an error. This is not a bodybuilding pod or internet radio show / podcast. This is a fitness and recovery internet radio show / podcast. My name is Marv. I'm your host, and we're doing a listener Q&A. So our first question was about recovery. The rest of these are more about fitness, exercise, nutrition, weight loss, etc. And so we'll go back to our regular scheduled programming of a specific topic, blending fitness and recovery from any sort of addiction a little bit more closely. So that's what you're listening to right now, listener Q&A. Okay, how to crunch, how to perform crunches. So that's our next question. Most people come up way too far when doing a crunch, and that improperly performed crunch where your knees are bent, your hands are behind your head, and you come all the way up to touch your elbows to your knees, like what you did for the President's Fitness test when you were in middle school, which I'm assuming they still do. I don't know if they do. That actually causes a lot of shearing forces on the low spine. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a resilient low back, it is terrible for you. So most people come up way, 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 way too far on the back. Not only that, they miss a couple cues that are extremely important. So here's how to crunch properly. And when you're crunching properly, you're only moving maybe 6 inches, 8 tops. So you're on the floor, knees are bent, take pressure off the low spine. Now here's the deal. Most people will, first of all, I don't like my hands behind my neck, because I'll find that people start to wrench on their neck and use that for momentum, and that's just not good. So I honestly prefer to have my hands out to my side straight by either side. That's what I personally like to do. So knees are bent, you're on the floor. Now here's the kicker. Before you crunch up, and when I say crunch up, you're merely raising your shoulder blades off of the ground. So you're only moving, like I said, 6 to 8 inches tops. It can only be 2 to 3 inches in the beginning. Don't worry about it. You're only trying to get your shoulder blades off the floor. You're not coming all the way up like we did in the President's Fitness test back in the day, creating shearing forces on the spine. You're only coming up 2 to 3 inches, getting your shoulder blades off of the floor. That's it. But here's where most people miss out. You actually want to draw in your stomach while crunching forward. Now, here's the mental cue I want you to think. And this is hard to learn, so it's going to take some time. Imagine there's a string attached to your belly button, from your string going from your belly button to your spine, and you're just pulling that string taut, you're cinching it down. Or, suck in air loudly to learn this movement. While doing that, you are going to get far better activation of your entire core. It's almost like doing, if you've known of the old school bodybuilding pose of vacuums, of working that TBA, that transverse abdominis, which is extremely important. Doing that is the perfect way to crunch. So again, for this person, get on the floor, knees are bent, put your hands out in front by your sides, pointing towards your feet, and just try to raise your shoulder blades up. It might only come out 2 or 3 inches. You're probably going to shake a lot in the beginning. There's nothing wrong with that. Everything is a skill. Start from square one. Once you get a little bit more confident, when you're only really and also another thing you can think of is put your hand at the base of your sternum, or the end of your rib cage right in the middle, and your belly button. And so you're laying flat out, right, and your hand is totally stretched. You're trying to, as you crunch forward, just close the distance, shorten that distance between the two of them. And again, you don't have to move that far, so that's another mental cue. So start with that, actually. I should have started with that. I apologize. So you're on the floor. First time you've ever done it, put your thumb at the base of your sternum, your middle finger or your pinky finger, depending how far of a distance you have to go, to your belly button, and merely raise your shoulder blades off this floor and try to close the gap or the distance between the two. Shorten that distance. Once you've gotten that down, now comes the whole part of drawing in your stomach while crunching forward. And so picture there is a string from your belly button to your spine. You're cinching that string down. Suck in air loudly through your mouth if need be when doing the crunch, and try that. Do not go all the way up. It's totally terrible on your back. Also, I hate Russian twists or Mason twists when you're in that seating position and you're twisting your body. I hate that. It can be really detrimental to your low back health. So I like wood choppers, so look that up if you're looking for a rotational movement. But she asked about crunching, so that's my 2 cents on that. I know we got a little bit off topic. We are doing great on time. Okay, next question. Healthy body fat percentage for women and how women lose that stomach. Okay, she's got a bunch of questions. Healthy body fat percentage for women. So average is, I believe, is 25 to 31% is supposed to be average. That's not the average today, but that used to be the standard. And I know for women, I see no need to get below 20%. So I like 20 to 22, 24, 20 to 25%. I think is a very healthy body fat percentage for women, which is, yes, it is a little, it's lower than the norm. So I am not calling anybody out. I am not trying to shame anybody. That's just my own personal opinion. I like the 20 to 25% range for women. Now, unless you're a stage competitor, there's no need to drop below 20%, in my opinion. Now, if you want to be really, really shredded, then my hat's off to you. If that's your definition of fitness and you have a healthy relationship with food and your body and exercise and all that, then go for it. However, women and men, we're fundamentally different. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. So, women, your body wants to keep you alive and keep you fertile. When you drop below 20%, you're getting dangerous into the area where you could lose your menstrual cycle, completely damage your metabolism, lose your hair, and just totally mess up your hormones. So I see no need to go below 20% unless you're a stage competitor or, like I said, you have a healthy relationship with food in your body and that's just your definition of fitness, and go for it. 100%. Who am I to judge? But we see these pictures of women with these like ripped six-packs like dudes, and odds are they are not menstruating and they have caused some damage to their metabolism, and it's not good. So our bodies do not, like I said in the beginning, if you go on a crash diet, your body doesn't know you're trying to look good naked and lose weight. It just perceives there's a famine. Our body wants to keep us alive, one, and fertile, two. If you drop below that percentage, then you are at risk for messing up your hormones, losing your menstrual cycle, and having hair issues, having your hair fall out, all of that. I might as well just go into men. For men, again, 12 to 15%, I think, is pretty darn good for men. The average is above that. 10% would be great, but 10%'s effing hard. So 12 to 15% is ideal. That is healthy. You could be over that. It just that's such a blanket statement. So I'm not really trying to offend anybody if you're above that. I was asked my opinion. So men's bodies bounce back better from stage competitions. It's just a fact. Our thyroid bounces back better. Our hormones bounce back better. Typically, this is a generalized statement, and so that's that. Okay, how women lose that last stubborn belly pooch after giving birth. Okay, so stubborn belly fat. So men and women, once again, we're fundamentally different. There's nothing wrong with that. So, let's see, what do I want to do? Okay, well, let's say for general, to lose stubborn fat, consistency is key. Okay, nutrition is of the utmost importance. So, a subpar workout and nutrition program followed religiously or consistently will outperform a quote-unquote perfect workout or nutrition program followed sporadically. So consistency, number one. Number two, high-intensity interval training cardio is a great way to burn that last bit of belly fat. So what that is sprint intervals or all-out work. So you have sprint interval and a rest interval, sprint interval, rest interval. I hate low-intensity, steady-state cardio. I've kind of referenced that before in this episode of One Rep at a Time Radio on the Recovery Channel mobile app brought to you by onerepatatime.net. We're doing a listener Q&A. High-intensity interval training is the best way to activate that stubborn body fat stores. So there's a whole bunch of protocols, but pretty much what it is anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds when you're really advanced of 100% effort sprint, not leave something in the tank. Somebody has a gun to your head. You cannot go faster. You go from 10 to 30 seconds, and then you rest, get your heart rate down, and then you repeat. Rest, get your heart rate down, and then repeat, etc., etc., etc. A great intro to this, which is really quick, is known as Tabata. It was created by a Japanese scientist, Dr. Tabata. Now, that's not true high-intensity interval training, but what it is it's 20-second work interval, 10-second rest. 20-second work, 10-second rest. Repeat it 8 times. It only lasts 4 minutes. Man, it is hell. But that will actually boost your cardiovascular system. Or high-intensity interval training, HIIT cardio, will boost your actually strengthen your cardiovascular system, can potentially help your body burn that stubborn belly fat, those trouble spots, I should say. are just great for health. Speed up your metabolism. They could actually it could potentially reverse the aging process. They find, especially in elderly folks, that it could actually regenerate mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of our muscle cells in the body, which could help reverse the aging process. But anything that changes our body that profoundly totally sucks. So when you do it, it feels like, if you never know what it feels like to quit smoking cigarettes or quit smoking anything, any sort of substance, that's what it feels like. Daggers in your lungs. You should be wanting to cough. It sucks doing it, but it works well. So hit cardio, consistency with your nutrition, know what your caloric balance is. You need to be in a caloric deficit. And there is a difference, like I referenced, about trouble spots on men than women. So typically trouble spots for men are our low back and are right below our belly button. Women is typically thighs, butts, but also could be that little belly pooch that this individual is talking about. Now, men burn... Okay, how do I word this again? So men are different. When we release fatty acid in the bloodstream through exercise, when those fatty acids are in the bloodstream, we're more adept at then using that fatty acid for energy and burning it off. Women, when that fatty acid is released in their bloodstream and it's floating around, they don't always burn it off, and it can actually redeposit. That's why you have those stubborn areas that are the last to go. And so, men will burn more fat throughout the day and less during exercise, while women will burn more fat during exercise and less throughout the day. And again, why? Because the human body wants to survive, and what is women's main biological job, not just biological job, is to produce and be fertile. And so if you drop below a certain body fat percentage, like we referenced with stage competitors, you're not going to be fertile. So that's why that happens. So hit cardio, consistency. There is a difference between men and women, unfortunately. And that's going to be potentially, if that's your trouble spot, that's going to be the last spot to go. So just be consistent. It takes some time. Now, just FYI for any women out here listening or in the future who just gave birth or have been pregnant or know anybody is and they give birth, the first thing you need to do is to reestablish your connection with your core, primarily your transverse abdominis, known as the TBA. And what you do to do that is perform vacuums, which I referenced before with how to crunch. All that is you're sucking in your belly button, picturing it's touching the back of your spine as much as you can and holding that sucked in position for, if it's only 10 seconds in the beginning, up to a minute. You could just Google vacuum pose, the old school bodybuilding where, they flare the ribcage out and their stomachs are sucked in. Frank Zane had an incredible vacuum pose. I think the best of all time, in my opinion. So look at that. You need that transverse abdominis has to weaken and atrophy when you're pregnant. Otherwise, there's nowhere for the baby to go. So the first step into getting back into fitness is reestablishing your core. Obviously, only once cleared with your doctor, but just FYI. And then we had another question from this individual. How to tell if that area, the stubborn little belly pooch we're calling it, is just fat or just skin. So how you do that is, if you pinch the skin and you're just grabbing that area and you're grabbing more than a few millimeters of skin, there's going to be some body fat there. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just letting you know. If it's truly loose skin, it's only a couple millimeters. And so that's how you tell that. Now, water retention is something as well. When you pull it, how much it jiggles will determine how much, if there's water, if it ripples, if there's water or just fat. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, if you do have loose skin, surgery might be inevitable, but what could help is, first of all, once you're cleared by your doctor, is to build up muscle underneath. Gelatin might have an effect on it by tightening your skin, potentially. And then vitamin E is really good for reducing scars, and vitamin E, like oil, putting it on it topically might reduce stretch marks, just an FYI. But yes, there is a potential for that. You might have to have surgery depending on how much loose skin you have. Typically, that's more for people who are like morbidly obese and lost hundreds of pounds. But that is something to keep in mind, so I hope that helps. And we're on to our last question, and it is a doozy. Is organic really necessary, or is it just a bunch of marketing hype? Okay, so I have dramatically changed my opinion on this within the last couple months. Same with artificial sweeteners and diet foods and all of that. So, okay, let's just put it this way. My girlfriend and I are making a conscious decision to eat majority of our food is organic now versus non-organic, which that meant that I needed to quit my eating 6,000 calories a day to maintain a body weight higher than what my body likes to be. So my body likes to be, if I'm lean, around 183 to 187 pounds. I was staying up at 195 pounds. I hit over 200 for a little period of time, but I was around a lean 195 pounds. But guess what? It was taking 6,000 calories on my training days to maintain that body weight above my body weight set point. But after doing a bunch of research, decided that we are going to go organic, and that meant that our food bill was also going to go up. Now, it's gotten way better in the past. Thankfully, we have Costco, and there's like online marketplaces like Thrive Marketplace. I got a free plug for them. That are sprouting up. You know, it's like Amazon. Amazon's doing some stuff, so organic is getting better. The prices are getting better. So why are we making the switch? Glyphosates is what they spray, the pesticides and all the genetically modified food. It affects us, and they didn't know that at the time, but it's affecting our gut biome, the bacteria in our stomach. And that is, I've referenced it on here before, our gut biome, bacteria living inside us, our healthy bacteria, our non-healthy bacteria in our stomachs and our gut. That is the next frontier of health, let alone fitness, health. And those are the non-organic foods are damaging that gut flora, that gut biome. Same with artificial sweeteners. And now I know some people, you can't afford organic. You can't afford organic. So, in the glyphosates, the pesticides, they're even in the organic food, because when the rain comes down, like even rain's full of it from everybody spraying it all over the place. You know, there's a reason why foods are in season almost all year long now, when before they weren't. So even the organic food has it, but it's less of it. And unfortunately, organic does make a difference. I thought it was a bunch of marketing hype for a very, very long time, but the more research I do, the more I am concerned. So that's just my own personal opinion. That's my own personal little health journey. Remember, I have my own personal definition, so yes, there is something to organic, sadly, I know. So I thought it was just like the gluten-free BS, that unless you legitimately have a food intolerance or you've been pounding gluten for years and years and years, gluten-free just means way more expensive and man-made stuff. Organic does not seem to be that, so yeah. Sorry. I know I took kind of a downer tone on that, but that's what I've decided after doing a bunch of research. So we're actually going to be writing some stuff on that. I might actually even have a whole podcast on, or internet radio show, sorry. Might run it on here, or we might run it just separately on like YouTube for now and like all those other platforms later, about artificial sweeteners in organic and non-organic genetically modified foods or not, because that's, again, very health and fitness specific. There's not so much recovery based, so I might choose a different route for that, but that will definitely be a topic coming up. So this concludes the listener Q&A episode for this week of One Rep at a Time Radio on the Recovery Channel mobile app originally, and then for now on YouTube later, and then eventually we will start uploading it to different platforms as well. My name is Marv. I want to personally thank you for listening and tuning in. I do not take this lightly. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to do this, to bring you information. Hopefully what I presented made sense, that you got something out of it. And I know it was very fitness and health specific, but those are the questions we got. If you are looking for more information about what we offer, visit onerepatatime.net. If you think it's super rad, I have my own internet radio show, the Recovery Channel mobile app. You could reach out to me there. Or actually, you could just reach me at marv@onerepatatime.net to shoot me an email. And I can put you in contact with the wonderful, wonderful woman who runs the Recovery Channel mobile app. And we can put you in contact. Look, remember, everything is a skill. Everything we do is a skill. Just how we learn how to get through life and our clean and sober lifestyles, or just not practicing addiction, because addiction doesn't have to be just drugs and alcohol. It can be gambling, food, sex, eating disorders. I don't care what it is, okay? Recovery is all-encompassing. So just because we had to learn, how to learn that new lifestyle, we still have to learn a new lifestyle when it comes to health and fitness. So nobody's gonna be perfect from day one. It's progress, not perfection. But remember, we can accomplish anything we want, just one day at a time, one meal at a time, one snack at a time, one set at a time, one rep at a time. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you shortly. Have a blessed day, and give yourself some credit if you woke up and fell asleep last night, woke up today instead of passing out and coming to. That is a blessing. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.